At a time when there's plenty of controversy regarding Formula One and title championships being decided on whims, it's a rather interesting time for the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix to be back in the headlines because, believe it or not, Felipe Massa, the man who competed with and lost to Lewis Hamilton in that championship deciding fight in the 2008 season, is suddenly exploring options to get the result of the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix nullified so that, technically speaking, Massa would be crowned the champion of 2008 rather than Hamilton. It might seem like it's a bit of a stretch, especially considering the fact that 2008 was a long time ago. But believe it or not, Massa does have his reasons for actually being able to choose to think of even, going down that route of taking legal action and trying to get the race cancelled. But why exactly is he doing that? Where is this coming from out of the blue? And does he really stand a chance to get that result overturned? That's what we're going to be discussing in this video. First, let's take you back to the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, which was a pretty controversial race to say the least, at least with the benefit of hindsight. Now, the Singapore Grand Prix of 2008 is remembered for the fact that Nelson Piquet Jr. ended up causing a deliberate safety car. And what that did, because it was timed rather conveniently and it was done so deliberately by the team, was that it allowed Alonso to stay out in front during a safety car and thus end up claiming the win. However, what is really worth noting is what happened with the drivers who were competing for the championship. Felipe Massa ended up finishing 13th. Lewis Hamilton finished 3rd. 3rd gave him a good number of points, whereas 13th gave Massa no points. But why was this such a sticking point at that point? Because Massa was in fact running ahead of Hamilton, but there was a botched pit stop, which you'd remember was a very popular clip which still does the rounds, wherein Massa was refueling, he left the pits, but then he ended up pulling the pipe straight out and therefore had to go back, lost a lot of time. So again, why is this suddenly coming back into focus in 2023? Well, that's because of some interesting quotes from the man who owned F1's commercial rights for the longest time, Bernie Ecclestone. Now, exactly why this race stood, and that's what we're going to talk about beforehand, is that you're thinking, okay, if it was controversial then and you knew that the race had deliberately been fixed by Renault, then why not just annul things at that point? The key was there was no real protest raised, and once the season is over, then FIA codes will very much be set in stone. So what that means is, once the awards are given out at the FIA awards ceremony at the end of the year, then they are not going to be overturning the result. That used to be the norm. And to make things even more of an open and shut case, the larger Renault team were exonerated from a crime. The only people who were believed to be in on the entire thing were Flavio Briatore and Piquet Jr. himself, as well as some other high members. But by and large, the team didn't really know all that much. So because of that, the incident was not really, blown even more out of proportion, and so the race wasn't cancelled, the results weren't annulled, nothing of that sort will happen. So why bring it up now? This is where Bernie Ecclestone comes in. He, in a recent interview, basically said that we had enough information in time to investigate the matter of the Singapore Grand Prix. According to the statutes operable at the time, we should have cancelled the race in Singapore under those conditions. Those conditions which he's referring to are, of course, the conditions wherein, Renault deliberately planned to get the race safety car to give Alonso a win, because that was the best way that he could get a win at that point in time. He does further go on to add, though, that means that the Singapore Grand Prix would never have happened for the championship standings. In fact, it would have been annulled from championship standings, and then Felipe Massa would have become world champion and not Lewis Hamilton. Wow, that's a big thing to say from the man who basically ran the sport. And he does further go on to say that the only reason they chose not to really go down this route was because they didn't want to bring any scandal to the sport. Thus, it does seem like Felipe Massa has a very credible case in his hands. Or does he? Well, that's really where things come into hope, because if you're looking at the hopes that he has when it comes to getting the result overturned, they are slim to none depending on the circumstances you want to look at it from. So he must go to the International Court of Appeal. The International Court of Appeal, though, is a body that was established by an FIA statute. So what is happening in essence is that the FIA is policing itself. So in that case, it seems very unlikely that after 15 or 17 years, they are going to be overturning this result. at the whims of what is being said by the former owner of the sports commercial rights. Remember, Bernie Ecclestone had sold the rights of the sport to Liberty Media a long time ago, and therefore doesn't really have any say in how F1 is run any longer. So the FIA now bending to his will and saying, look, back then we had the ability to investigate, we chose not to, seems unlikely at best. And that is in fact what Massa himself has admitted. He said that it doesn't really seem likely that I will win, but I'm going to explore the route anyway. So in case you're worried about Hamilton losing what was his first ever world championship, seems unlikely it's going to happen, but the fact that it's even happening at all shows just how rife with such interesting stories and really borderline corruption F1 can be sometimes. You'd hope that the sport is in a better place now, especially considering the wave of popularity it's receiving, but hey, who knows, maybe in 15 years time we'll have someone talking about reviewing and maybe discarding Abu Dhabi 2021. It's worth a shout. Anyway, that's just how I feel about it. What do you guys think? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, download the AajTak app, and plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've done. For now though, from my side, goodbye.